Okay, guys, let's start. Hi, and welcome, of course, to our first, a pre-happening in the lineup to our 2021 We Are Now Awards. I'm Stephan Schindler, and I'm heading up the board of directors of the VRBB, the Virtual Reality Association Berlin-Brandenburg. Currently, we represent 80 companies that are active in immersive technologies and immersive content creation. And when we founded this industry association about 6 years ago, the term VR that we put in our name, VRBB, was really used to categorize kind of everything related to immersive media or immersive experiences. The acronyms that we're using today, like MR, XR, and so forth, had not really been invented, and even AR seemed more exotic than VR at the time. So I'm really quite excited to see the VR Now Award in its fifth year now, and I think it's really establishing itself not only in Germany but quite internationally. And in times like these, where reality continues to lose excitement, I'd say virtual reality can really help us to fill sort of that gap and keep us upbeat and also keep us together, as individuals with the virtual meetings that are now coming up. So without any further ado, let's go on. And of course, thank you all for joining. And I guess I'm handing over to Ioulia to moderate this.
Yes. Thank you, Stephan. We're waiting for a couple of panelists. I see Lucas switching to his laptop, then waiting for Kathrin and Joanna. There's Joanna. Hey, Joanna, please join us. So
that we're doing that, you're like the crazy lady just yelling at people that are riding on one side. You're like, come on, come in here.
Well, I'm actually the crazy lady who's yelling at a laptop, so it's even worse. But before our other three dear panelists are gonna join, let's introduce ourselves. We have here Thomas Bedenk from Endava, we have here Alysha Naples from Tindrum, and we have here Tupac Martir from Satori Studios. So you guys, can you introduce yourselves a little bit? So let's start with Alysha.
Sure. Hi, I'm Alysha Naples. I'm the Chief Experience Officer for Tindrum, and I am live in Amsterdam, where very shortly I'll get really bright and I'll need to close the curtain because the sunset's just about to happen right there. So I work primarily in augmented reality. I was the Senior Director of User Experience at Magic Leap for the early part of Magic Leap. I left the company in 2016. And we founded Tindrum later that year. And so, yeah, is there anything specific you want me to say, Ioulia?
No. I'm gonna ask you specific questions for later.
Oh boy.
Yes. So let's continue. Hey, Joanna. Hey, Lucas. Hey, Kathrin. So we have everybody right now. That's fantastic. So let's continue with Thomas, a fellow Berliner from Endava. Airplane? Who has an airplane in their background? No? Okay, probably Lucas, he's gone. All right, Thomas, you're muted. Can
Thomas,
anybody?
you're muted.
He's gone.
Unmuting was too much.
Yes. So let's wait for Thomas. And Tupac, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name is Tupac Martir, and I'm an internet user.
Awesome, thank you, Tupac.
I am an internet user.
All right, so I'm gonna talk about you then a little later in my questions. Then we have Kathrin from
Yeah,
Mainz.
hi. I will just 1 second, and I can introduce all of you to beautiful Berlin. And it's hard to see, but this should be Gedächtniskirche. It's a bit too light, but so you're right in the main square. You see a little bit of it back. Yeah, and I'm Kathrin from Mainz Productions. I think I know almost everyone on the screen. Oh no, Alysha, hello. Yeah, we are Mainz Productions. We do neuro-reactive virtual reality. So we bring together neurofeedback and VR. And I'm also a member on the board of Virtual Reality Berlin-Brandenburg, VRBB, and happy to be with you today.
Thank you, Kathrin. And Joanna from HP. Can you give us a little introduction about you? You're muted too. I think your stream is not the best.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, Thomas. Thomas is back. One man down and one man back.
I can jump in if you want to reconnect, or I think she's actually muted. I had a problem with my sound device. It somehow selected the wrong sound device.
Joanna, do you want to refresh, or because you're like, I see you're muted and I think your stream is not the best. All right, Thomas, do you want to continue before? Yeah. All right, Joanna is refreshing. Thomas, from Indaba, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, MVP Extended Reality at Indaba, and when VRBB was founded, it was still Exoset, and we were one of the founding members. We've done virtual augmented reality for about 6 years now, but had a history in that company of over 15 years of game development, which was a perfect basis, of course, to start this kind of business. And we've done all kinds of areas, from training for Siemens, virtual trade shows for Volkswagen, and exciting marketing cases for Audi, brand introductions and things like that. So excited to be here and discuss some things with you, and looking forward to come into the flow of a discussion rather than technical problems here. And
you guys already won the Winkebaer Awards.
We did for our Siemens training. We did win the VR Now Awards, and yeah, that's how I now am part of the jury.
Fantastic. So Lucas and Joanna still have some technical difficulties, and while they reconnect, just a general question: how we're gonna kick it off with obviously shameless advertisement. So a question to Kathrin: it's the VR Awards, and what is so special about them? Lucas!
Yes. So
sorry to interrupt. I can see you now. It was so scary. You could all see me and I couldn't see anybody. I was like, oh no, am I doing anything embarrassing? Am I picking my nose? No. Hi. Please carry on.
Yeah. So the question was, what is special about the VR Now Awards? I would say it's coming from the Virtual Reality Association of Berlin and Brandenburg. So we are a really specific team. For example, I just got lighting directions, and can you see how much better you can see me? So there's a great team behind it. We are all from very diverse, but also small and very energetic Berlin and Brandenburg VR companies. We've met each other also, a lot of us, at Berlinale last year when we did the VR Now event Beyond Storytelling at the Planetarium in Berlin. And yeah, what is special about the VR Now Awards? They're around for 5 years already. They've been, in the last years, it was a physical event in Potsdam. So Potsdam-Babelsberg, you know, the famous UFA studios. So Berlin and Brandenburg, we have an incredible tradition on doing film and television. And so what I think all of VRBB does is we bring this famous tradition to the future. There's a hub in this area for everything that has to do with virtual reality and extended reality, because we have the best specialists on imaging technologies, on visualization. We're a very innovative region, and that's what VR Now Awards bring to us. Plus, it's kind of a funky event. I mean, if you compare it to all the major events that are out there as well, most of them are, I do say, a bit more, I wouldn't say serious, but you know, we have the famous Winkebaer. You've maybe seen it a little bit much in the last times, but it's it always has a twinkle in the eye. So we don't only want to be an award with the best jury and the best specialists. And as you can see here, we have the best jury and we have famous experts. So really happy to do that. We also want to be a fun event and we want to be funky. And I think that's what makes it special. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathrin. And Joanna is back. Joanna, does your sound work now? Like, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Doesn't look like it.
You're muted again. And yet again, Joanna, you're muted.
But Lucas is on. Maybe Lucas wants to introduce himself.
Lucas Rizotto from Lucas Rizotto can introduce himself. Lucas, do you wanna give a little introduction about who you are?
Absolutely, and I apologize for echo because the headphones don't work with this. But I am a I'm a creative technologist. I make cool things with futuristic technology. I started doing VR and I created an experience called Where Thoughts Go, which is available on the Quest. And now I run a YouTube series called Lucas Builds the Future, where I create crazy things with futuristic technology. It's been very fun. I love this space and I love really anything that allows us to change our perspective, expand our minds, yada, yada, yada. It's fun. And I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Okay. Joanna, can you say something again? Like I couldn't hear you. Oh, shit. Is it only my computer or can you guys hear Joanna?
No, I can't hear you.
It looks like Joanna's microphone is muted. That's what it says on the screen.
It doesn't show as muted for me.
No, I had the same. You guys kept telling me that I'm muted, but I wasn't muted. And the problem was that the software here selected a different microphone device. So, and that's why you guys.
Joanna, maybe select a different device.
Yeah, but I think she would have to reconnect. She might.
She just did. Like, this is there any other advice? Like, dear VR Now Awards tech team, can you please give another advice how this problem can be solved? Because I remember we had this problem also in the test panel.
Okay.
All right. So sorry for that. So I'm gonna then start with a couple of questions for our other jury members until we wait that our tech team is gonna help Joanna. So the first question is to the three fantastic reality blurring jury members, which is Alysha, Tupac, and Lucas. So in my opinion, like one of the most interesting aspects in working in XR is the interplay between different realities. And you three are kind of the pioneers of this inter-reality. And Tupac is gone. So we always lose somebody. So with Alysha, like you were very humble in your description. Like I think like one of the craziest and coolest facts is that you designed the light, the exhibition, and the piece for Marina Abramovic, like the living legend in performance art. And you guys were also the first ones to sell an XR piece at Christie's. Then Tupac was back, coined actually the term performative reality with Cosmos Within Us, and is just like, is basically a virtual artist and director. And I mean, you worked with the Queen, with Beyonce, I cannot really, like, nothing can be added to that. And Lucas, you have like one of my favorite YouTube channels of all time, Lucas Builds the Future, which has, I think, like the funniest, the most innovative, and the most fantastic videos. Like, and also like where you're blurring the lines, like with things from books with the Moroder's map and how you rebuilt them and like playfully like showed in your videos is just amazing. So basically, like my question to all three of you is, can you guys tell us a little bit about your approaches of how you create a piece and how important is the interplay with reality for you?
Ladies first.
All right. I think that my answer might be a little bit different because, as I said in my intro, I work primarily in augmented, not in virtual reality. And so throughout my entire career, I would say that the driving force that has led me has been a desire to give people access to something that they didn't have access to before. And I think this comes from having grown up in a small town, in a small state, in a very large country in the United States, and feeling like I was just really separated from culture and all kinds of activity. And I was one of those kids that wanted nothing more than to get out of the place where I grew up and get myself to New York. And so the idea of giving people access to something has always been really important to me. And so now as I begin to work in mixed reality, I've found that for me, like one of my primary values is connection. I am all about connection with people, with places, and with ideas. And so that is always the lens with which I start any sort of project. And so you mentioned The Life, which was a really interesting project because it was not just a large scale mixed reality exhibition, but it was the first time that 30 people were experiencing identical mixed reality at the same time. And so very much how I approached it was thinking about how can we create a container or even just a village around this piece of work that enables each of these guests who come in. Our first exhibition of it at the Serpentine in 2019 was 30 to 35 guests at a time. We don't do that now because of COVID and distancing, but at the time we were working with 30-something people. And so the goal was really, how can we make sure that every one of these 30 people is having a great experience and feels like they're having a one-on-one experience with Marina, even as they're standing shoulder to shoulder next to someone else. And so it becomes really about, for me, narrowing down to really what is the core thing we want somebody to take from this, and not trying to do too much, but trying to do one thing really, really well, and keeping that in the forefront of all the decisions that are made.
Awesome. How was if I may ask, like, how was the experience to be the first team, the first designers to like really sell MRPs at Christie's? It's so cool.
It was really nuts, and it was definitely one of those things where the timing felt really challenging, for lack of a better way to put it, because we had agreed to do the sale in 2019. All of the paperwork was signed. We went to Los Angeles to do the first exhibition at Christie's in LA in early February of 2020, and it's basically while we were there that the world began closing down. And it became this sort of mad dash to get back home to Europe while we still could. So we actually had to leave the exhibition before it was done and scramble back to Europe. And so selling it became really interesting because we designed an entire exhibition to be shown in New York, which wasn't able to happen because of COVID. And even as we did show it again in London for a very small number of potential buyers before the auction, even that felt like really like reimagining and completely redesigning it from the ground up, because The Life was very much conceived to be a communal experience of everybody sort of having this thing with Marina, and we had to change it so that it became instead a very individualized experience. And so to be like very tactical, one of the things that we changed between the pre-COVID and the post-COVID versions is in the Serpentine version, Marina everybody sees Marina facing the same way. So if she turns to say 2 o'clock, everybody sees her at 2 o'clock. When we did later versions, because we wanted to space people out, we didn't want people to clump in front of her and want to be right there. One of the things we did is while everybody sees the same motions that she's doing, she's at a different rotation for each person around the circle. So it really enables people to have a one-on-one individual experience with her without standing on top of each other. So that was one of the challenges, and certainly just the idea of selling a mixed reality piece that relies upon shared headsets in the middle of a pandemic. I had the question of like, will anybody want this, or is everybody going to want this? Because like on one hand, you know, shared devices that you put on your face, but on the other hand, a piece of performance art that doesn't require you to be in a museum or a gallery with other people. So I think if this crazy time has really made anything clear to me, it is that within any binary that exists in the world, there is always a tension. And so the public and the private and the what is safe and what is isolated and what is connected and all these questions really got called into play. But I'm honestly still just delighted that the piece did have a successful auction and it sold, and I'm working on the first installation for the Farshu Foundation, which was who purchased the piece right now. And so it was originally scheduled. Actually, I don't know if I can say this, so I won't. But I will say that we have designed the exhibition for one of the Farshu spaces, but it is more likely going to open in a different one first because of the situation with the virus.
Awesome, thank you. Wants to continue, Lucas, Tupac?
Youth before anything else.
Okay, so I'll pick this up and I'll go on what Alysha has said as well, and because like I used to be to do different things before COVID, and now after COVID, my processes are completely different. So before, I would really like approach virtual reality and try to think of like what are the interactions, what are the kinds of the fundamental interactions that you can build really interesting stories around, and how can you make things that add new language to the medium? That was always the focus to me. It's like, how do we create something that is really inherent to VR in the way it tells its story and the way everything is structured, to try to make something that really feels native, really feels unique, but also it contributes to how the whole medium evolves. So it's like, oh, you watch this and then you just look at VR in a completely new way. But then I did my first one, and I did it entirely out of my, on my own without funding. And then there was some funding later. But then I started to make my second one, and I tried to raise money, and I just got so tired. It's such a monumental waste of time raising money. You just spend months and months talking to people, and you could be just doing the thing. And then in 2019, I had a year where nothing happened, and I got really upset. So I said, fuck it. I'm going to start a YouTube channel where I just do whatever the hell I want, and I'm not going to wait for anybody. That includes like, I'm not going to wait until we have glasses before I do cool AR art. I'm just going to do stuff focusing on the video and focusing on the story, and try to find ideas for projects that I think are exciting, hopefully a little bizarre, but underneath it all meaningful. Like every project is really an avenue that we use to understand ourselves better, understand the world better. So like when I made a virtual reality time machine, I spent an entire year recording my life with camera glasses, and they made a VR time machine that lets me go back in time. Really, of course, it's an absurd project that's also very interesting, but the reason I made it is so we could reflect on what that means about the idea of like what it is there going to be a past? And it's like, is the idea of past an outdated idea? Like, is the past just going to be a different version of the present that we can access in the future? And how does that impact how we look at ourselves, look at our lives, et cetera, et cetera? So really using technology as an avenue for exploring the human condition. And it's been very fun. It's been very freeing. I don't have to ask anybody for money. I don't have to spend 2 years on a project and then release it. Instead, I can just do something in 3 months and put it out. So it's definitely, it's something that no one really is doing in our space, but so that's why it was scary, but it's been very fulfilling, and people are responding to it. And I'm starting to believe that story matters more than product nowadays. So that's like a little, just a general blurb, but yeah, it's interesting. I can ask questions if I wasn't clear with anything, but it's been very good fun. Although I do have a festival piece that I'm submitting. It is so dumb and ridiculous that I don't know if anyone will say yes. But yeah.
What, can you say what it is about? No? Can you say what it is about? The festival piece?
I haven't said this before. I don't know. It's the opposite of an educational experience. So people talk about VR, you know, VR is an empathy machine, but people always talk about it like it's like, oh, you're always going to see the perspective of the world like how it is, or you're going to see the world from the perspective of someone who's unprivileged. But what is it like to create a VR experience in which you experience reality from the perspective of someone who's completely wrong? So that's kind of the general concept. It's like show you a delusion rather than it's an inverse of a document.
Awesome. Can't wait. When do you think, like, are you submitting this year or is
I
it something?
submitted it to Tribeca, but I may have gone too far. I pretended it was an educational experience and I gave it a fake title and a fake synopsis. So when you start playing, you're just like, what the fuck's going on? I may have gone too far, but we'll see.
Awesome.
I expect nothing less from you.
Awesome. By the way, Lucas, our head judge for the Holy Shit Award. Just for everybody out there. Yeah, I think like everything that Lucas does is basically a winner of the Holy Shit Award already. So
yeah, that was really fun. When I saw that category, I was like, yeah. I've never been a jury of anything, but that's the one thing. I feel qualified, you know? I know all about holy shit.
Those are, everybody who hasn't seen the channel Lucas Builds the Future is just amazing. It's absolutely fantastic. Like if you feel down and if you want to just like lighten up your mood, it's amazing. And just the ideas are absolutely fantastic. All right, Sir Tupac.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about your performative realities, about how you play with realities, and what's cooking.
I mean, we basically switched everything to realities. So the way that we work in the architectural side, in the entertainment side, and then the immersive side is all about realities, whether it's physical, digital, ephemeral, extended, augmented, virtual. They're all realities because at the end of the day, someone's experienced them some sort of way. I am very confused in the way that I work in that sense. I have, as you can see, a lot of Post-its. I have a lot of written stuff. I am convoluted in my head. I sleep 4 hours every single night. I am one of those people that is truly tortured by my own work. That's the only way I can put it. I am obsessed by every single little element that has to go. I think Lily is somewhere in the chat, and poor little girl, I love her to pieces, but I'm sure that I made her suffer more than anyone would ever want to suffer with what I was going through. Not only because also one of our main characters was called Lily, so the amount of times that someone would be yelling and she'll be coming in really, really quickly, going, "What's going on?" It's like, no, sorry, we're just rehearsing. But it's very collaborative. There is a lot of that thing that is in my head, and I understand how all the pieces are coming together. But then I spit it out, and then everybody else kind of joins in and starts bringing their elements into it. I always call myself the guardian of the story, the guardian of the project, because everybody will start taking the project places, and it's my job to kind of hold them because I have the overall idea of how things need to do. But when we start playing with smells and we start playing with music, and I know that it has to have a specific sound. There's one thing on when we were doing the flower scene where the music, according to me, was too fast, so I slowed it down 3 times, and I moved the chords of the violin and the cello down 2, and then I ended up bringing the cello further down 1, and then the trumpet went up 1 scale. And it's just things that I go, that's the way that it needs to feel for the person going through the headset. That's the way that it has to feel for somebody watching. It's really complicated to think when you're thinking in realities, because you are thinking of different points of view and different climaxes for every single one of the people that are watching. because the story doesn't climax in the same place. So the curves are actually different. And so you're kind of seeing this universe moving around and you're trying to understand it. And yeah, I actually tell people, if you think Cosmos was weird, just wait until you see Unique, because it's Cosmos on steroids.
I can't wait. I really can't wait. And by the way, like Tupac is, I've never seen a second of Tupac where he's not working with one hand, telling somebody like telling something to somebody with the other hand and mouth, and then like really thinking of other ideas just at the same time. And by the way, Tupac, I see you. I see that you're working during the panel.
I'm actually, yeah, I'm not working because I'm not actually doing work. I'm exploring something that is really that something that basically naggled me last night. And then Lucas will be one of these people that understands it. It naggles me. And all of a sudden I'm like, I can't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. And then about an hour ago, I understood how it needed to be done. And so I'm kind of clicking and coding at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, it's like code, build, check, code, build, check. Code, and it's just, it's one of those things of once you get that one, then everything else just kind of moves along. But until you don't get that one working, it's horrible. And speaking of that, so now I've moved, so I work with 2 machines here, and I have 2 remote machines. So each machine is actually looking at another machine. So sometimes I get lost on which machine I'm actually working in constantly.
Awesome. And do you have like do you have a time plan? Like, were you guys able to work on your new piece in during Corona? And like, do you have?
Yeah, I mean, we've actually been very, very good at doing a bunch of R&D. We did proof of concept for this new piece 3 weeks ago. And we're going for prototype for June. And the idea is that we're going to debut the piece in October.
Yes, please. I hope.
The coolest part about it, though, is that it's not a piece made for physical space. So it's completely thought of an audience watching at home.
Okay, awesome.
Wait, you've made that's AR?
It's AR, VR, physical. So basically I have augmented, mixed, virtual, physical, and streamed. So I'm working on 5 different realities at the same time.
Oh wow, I can't wait. October.
The bragging. The brag.
My favorite bit about it is we wrote an entire AI code for the music. So all the music is made in AI.
Awesome. I can't wait. I only expect the greatest from you. So
I can see Thomas just laughing, going, what is this dude up to?
And the thing is that this dude is actually doing all of that. Like, that is insane. So it's going to be mind-blowing. I can't wait. So thank you, guys. Now, Joanna, can do we test like if it's working right now, the sound?
Hello.
Yes. We hear you.
Hello, everyone. It's great. It's great to have a voice. Hi, everyone in the chat. My name is Joanna Popper, and I am at HP. And it was last in Berlin a little over 2 years ago with a lot of you. So it's great to see you all in virtual Berlin. This is nice. This is nice too. It was fun to be live though. Excuse me. So I'm at HP on the VR team. We have a lot of different headsets and backpacks. We just recently, at the end of last year, started shipping the HP Reverb G2 and are going to start shipping the HP Reverb G2 Omnicept edition within the next month, which takes all the goodness of the HP Reverb G2, so super high resolution, lenses, really nice audio, made in collaboration with Valve and Microsoft, and then the Omnicept edition adds in eye tracking, pupillometry, face camera, and heart rate sensor all into one headset. So that will be shipping at the end of this month. So super excited about that announcement. And we've had the opportunity to work with at pretty much every festival, a ton of different amazing content creators, getting to support them on the technology side and in other ways. So worked with some of you in the past, excited to work with others of you in the future. But started working with different content creators in this role about 3.5 years ago. My previous background is from television, and the project that we recently were supporting was Finding Pandora X with Kira Benzig and Double I Studios, which won Venice Best Immersive VR Experience and just won Audience Award for virtual spotlight at South by Southwest.
Awesome.
Yes, Lucas, is true about Omnicept. I'll drop some links.
Yes, please. Yes, please. That's why the new HP is perfect for horror games.
Yeah, actually, yeah. You have the customization. You can customize the reactions or customize the content to the reaction if you're not scared enough or too overly scared.
Yeah, yeah, that's really, really cool. Then already like a question to Thomas and Joanna, because Thomas is also our head judge for VR technology. So VR technology is ever changing and a constant state of improvement. So what do you guys think are the current trends, tech trends this year, and what is it going to be in the future?
Yeah, that's so awesome. After all of those exciting aspects, I can cover tech. That's no, actually, I think that is Omnicept would be a perfect tool for something like Lucas does, because you need all those technologies to really manipulate people and the perception and kind of just into their intention and switch what they're perceiving and all that. I think that's a very fascinating aspect of about virtual reality in general, that you can really play with a person's attention. And of course, there are dark sides to it too, being able to manipulate people. But I think this whole aspect of biometry and having even more information about the user, really continuous information that is only stopped so far by what the person thinks. Really, even that you can extrapolate to some extent if you hook it up to all the machine learning algorithms and recognize some of the patterns, and I'm sure HP is doing all these kind of things, of course, in a positive way, not intrusive way. And I think it makes you, it has the potential to learn so much about a human being. And I think after all, this is all about the human tech relationship and how to enable that in completely new ways, be it in experiences and artistic pieces like we've just discussed, or also in business cases. If you're able to know so much more about the user, you can adjust the experience perfectly to the user. And I think someone else already mentioned, I think Alysha, about story being so essential. I usually say it a little bit different, not story, but experience, but it basically means the same thing. I think in the future, companies won't be able to sell their products anymore if they don't cover some level of digital experience, or in any of the. I was gonna kind of make a pun to Tupac, saying I'm currently developing an AI that is developing new realities, but since I'm not doing that, I think would it be a little bit pretentious? I just think it's funny to see how you can connect all those puzzle pieces, you know, like AI, all the emerging technologies, and try to squeeze more out of it of course, from a business perspective, but also from an artistic perspective, and kind of leverage all those new things. And kind of coming back to those, your real question about the trends, I think those are the most powerful trends when technology helps you reshape that human tech relationship in an essential way, so you can make meaningful experiences for the people.
Yeah, I would add to that, you know, some of the trends would be, and this is something what Lucas talked about a little bit in a way before, you know, continuing to make things easier, you know, make it more plug and play, you know, make things more user friendly on the tech side. And then, you know, to some of the points that were made about the biometrics, you know, we're heavily focused on that. You know, as everything is GDPR compliant, you know, we're where HP, we work with large enterprises, with governments, so all of user privacy and data is incredibly important. We worked with Jeremy Bailenson for the last few years, who's one of the leaders in VR privacy and VR ethics, to make sure that what we were creating, worked in that, in a positive way in that, and that, and just, kind of our business model is about, we sell you products. It's not about we sell your data to somebody else. So that's just kind of core in what we do.
And I would like to add that from this accessibility point, which is absolutely key to push these technologies forward. One technology that's definitely on the rise is the whole pixel streaming, cloud streaming aspect, where you can, I mean, all the business we've done last year was basically somehow connected to that. We can now, even to a decent quality, stream into the VR headset right away. And that makes a huge difference for availability, and you can have that same content, of course, with a different experience, driven to the browser, to any device, basically, and really connecting those aspects of making something new from an experience level to have it accessible. A lot of people is really driving things forward currently. I think what I really like lately is that we don't have to, as much as we used to, have to explain the benefits of VR and AR. It's really the companies are starting to realize there are so many benefits. So it's not so much about if, but about how, and that makes it much more interesting to talk about the how, and rather than trying to convince people generally that there's use in it.
And are there tendencies, for instance, like this is to you, Thomas, and to Stephan, like you guys are working at Endava, which is forever working already also on XR and different R&D solutions and industrial HR applications. Like, do you see certain trends starting from the pandemic, from Corona, where you need to really focus your R&D, or where what the clients right now want most of all, like where the focus of the clients is?
But from a business perspective, the pandemic has been positive, because all of a sudden people needed to move from virtual shows, from virtual exhibitions, from real shows and real exhibitions to virtual exhibitions, right? And there's kind of a competition going on of who is able to create the most attractive, the most sexy show. And that is definitely a business pusher, albeit I think it does not reach the level that I would have had expected, actually. I would have thought we would do a lot more. I would have thought that companies would invest a lot more money in R&D for creating these virtual experiences and be a bit more creative, and not just trying to put the show as we knew it into a virtual setting, but do something completely different, making use of the different opportunities we have with current technology.
Stephan, I think you're right, but that's because they're covering their asses, basically. I mean, they're just dealing with the situation, but at the same time, the digitalization generally is pushed massively. It's pushed so much, and us being online, and especially us, every one of us daily experiencing how tedious it is to do video conferencing, and this is gonna open up. We're not there yet with XR recollaboration on a broader level, but only in specialized topics currently. But everyone experiencing massively how lacking a conversation is in video. It will be much more open to go further with this new kind of medium in AR and mixed reality and VR, to really step into a new kind of communication.
Okay, thank you guys. Like I would, you already like talked about a couple of aspects like regarding Corona. Like I would open up the floor right now to everybody. It's just a general question of the ongoing pandemic had a very severe effect on everybody, and in VR, obviously, it hits the LBE sector very hard, but online gaming and social platforms gained much more traction. So what was your personal experience or the experience of the company that you're working with, and how are you dealing with, and how do you see the VR field post-pandemic?
Maybe I'll jump in because I'm gonna have to drop at the top of the hour. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. Just to jump in, I just have a wonderful example of what can happen. We're planning a premiere for Mind the Brain, our neuroreactive VR experience that some of you know. And one of the very nice examples of what can happen in pandemic is we have a speech at DocFest Munich next week, and it will be in front of one of the largest German theaters, Deutsches Theater, with a guaranteed non-present 1,500 visitors. It's a theater, it has an audience of 1,500 people, and we know for sure they will not be there. So we have some really interesting challenges, also from an artistic side. And you can even say, I think what we have to do is we have to turn this into an opportunity. I mean, it's actually something that maybe even some people even dreamed about artistically, to have the possibility to do something without an audience or with a virtual audience. So I think what I see is, yes, it's a challenge, but it's also the opportunity that we can reinvent things and we can reach people in a completely different way.
And Joanna, before you go, do you have something to add?
Yeah, quickly. What I would add is, if some of people have said this already, that we've seen strong growth and acceleration, in a short period of time of what we would have expected to happen over a series of years, particularly around VR use in education, for collaboration, for at-home gaming has, we've seen really strong growth with our products, as well as a lot of other products out there. What are some of the other ones? And so VR use in healthcare, in architecture, engineering, construction. So lots of growth. As far as the LBEs, it's really on a clearly very big huge impact last year, March and April, and then it became more of a case by case depending on where you were in the world and what the situation in that specific location was, and the regulations in that specific location. But we've seen now a lot of the companies we work with, they're back to numbers in some of their locations that are even higher than pre-pandemic. So it's interesting in some places, like the speed of the rebound. But no, I need to go because I'm late. Thank you for everyone. Good to see you all. I got my info there if anyone wants to get in touch. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you, Joanna. All right. Somebody else wants to add?
And obviously for us, it was very hard. We had an entire tour for Cosmos, and needless to say, that got killed. And then obviously live entertainment went to where no one can actually do it, so that was difficult. I think the biggest thing that we had, and this goes back to what Stephan was saying, is one of our biggest problems was with clients who thought that going digital was cheaper than going physical, and when you and then going with industries that are so scared of moving forwards. The fashion industry just doesn't want to move. They're like little children going, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not going anywhere. This is all I know, this is all I know, this is all I know. And so to kind of snap them out of it and slowly move them into a digital direction, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I remember finishing the shows that we did in September, and we did 5 shows in Italy. And I finished, and as soon as I finished the shows, I was like, okay, let's start talking about February because we need to go digital. And it was like, oh no, we'll be ready, and it's going to be all right. And all of a sudden, it's like we started getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. And then we got to January, and they're like, "Oh my God, we have to do digital. What do we do now?" It's like, well, sorry, you're like 3 months late already. You know, let's salvage whatever we can at this point to make something digital. And that was the problem, is so many of these industries are rooted in a way that they can't change. You know, they just decide that they don't want to change, you know, because this is the way that we've been doing it for the longest time. And rather than finding an amazing way of creating great content, they've stuck to their guns into what they know and slowly try to move. And some of it has been very good, and some of it has been absolutely appalling content that all of us just look at it and go, why are you doing that? You know, what's the need? You know, there's so many people, and because at the end of the day, they fall to the people that they trust the most. And sometimes the people that they trust the most are not the people that know how to make these things. And it's just, you know, it just follows a chain in which certain people now all of a sudden find themselves that they are just a surplus in the middle of the chain. And because they don't know it, they're going to protect their work. And so there's a lot of that going on.
There's one exception to the fashion industry, Balenciaga.
There's a couple of them. There's Balenciaga. I think Hermes did a very good job in the stuff they were doing. Mugler did a really nice, you know. So there's a few people that have done a really nice. But if you know, we're talking about 1% of an entire massive industry.
I'm just contractually obliged to point out Balenciaga.
And Iris von Herpen.
We just did their fall winter 21 fashion show in VR, and I love the Instagram post of Salma Hayek walking with the headset into a wall. We made Salma Hayek walk into the wall. Just, we can quit now. Everything. We achieved everything. So, but yeah, absolutely right. And interestingly, like in Germany, we have very similar problems, even bigger. Like it's crazy how right now education and how just a simple Wi-Fi connection is a huge issue. Yeah. And Lucas, Alysha? What?
Well, I think I touched on some of it earlier in that the work that we do is public exhibition that happens in museums and similar spaces. So when those spaces get hit, we also get hit. And I will say that similarly to Tupac had a whole tour set up for Cosmos, we had a whole circuit set up for the Life. You know, and certainly most of my work was already done for that, short of the showing up and installing and training all of the docents to work on it. And so it was a really challenging year and a scary year. And I think exacerbated very much by the fact that I settled in the Netherlands right before it all started. So it all happened in a country that was new and strange, and where I don't speak the language or understand how to file my taxes, and things like that. It's a really challenging time, but like with everything within the challenge, there is of course a huge opportunity. And so I think that my big hope is that within this time, we at Tindrum and I as a human have been able to sort of refocus on what really matters and come out of it stronger and with more to say.
And Lucas, do you have any post-pandemic VR predictions?
Oh, okay. So in terms of predictions, or in terms of like things that I learned, I guess.
You can do both.
Yeah.
And
what I have learned that has been successful to me for the past year is just cutting out every single middleman I could think of and just going straight to people. Be it when it comes to funding. Patreon is something that always, you know, people keep saying it, and it but we forget we are in VR and AR. People in VR AR have disposable income. They do. People in tech, people work at Facebook. And once I started focusing on going after higher tier patrons, people who would give me out, you know, $300 a month, and they wouldn't care. I started to actually build a critical mass of money, which has been important, very important during the pandemic. So going straight to them when it comes to posting things. And then later, if something blows up on YouTube or TikTok or whatever it is, if something blows up, then I can make it into a thing and sell it. But Yeah, I mean, all of you know that the prototyping, the first 3 months of a project are the most exciting. It's usually where most of the exciting work gets done. So that's what I've been focusing on, and getting that to people, and then later can figure out if you're going to release. And that's been a good strategy for me, and it's something that I'll be taking forward. So as far for predictions, I don't know. Honestly, I just refrained from giving away too many predictions when you're going on a market level. I do predict that virtual reality pass-through devices are going to be a big thing. And it's going to be the first time in which we'll see augmented reality experiences that everyone enjoys using and have reached interactivity parity with VR. Because right now, AR is way less interactive, or if it does have like hand tracking, it's like pales in comparison. It's kind of bad. We get over it because it's so interesting and it's so new, but it's kind of bad. But VR pass-through headsets will get the best of VR and mix it with a decent enough augmented reality experience. So that will be a very cool outlet. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for hand tracking. But as far as if people are going to use more VR after the pandemic, because of the pandemic, I don't know. I used VR less during the pandemic, but yeah. Good opportunity.
Lucas, we have one of those XR1 headsets laying in our office. We couldn't touch it in a year because we're not in the office. But if you want to play around with it, just come over and have a go at it.
Where are you?
In Berlin.
Just over the pond.
Yeah, that's another thing for us. We bought this headset for, I think with the service fee, it was 12,000 euros or dollars or whatever. And then we couldn't do the project we were going to do with it. And well, that's what you get sometimes.
They'll let me borrow
it. Julia, I wanted to I mean, basically everyone on the panel does such awesome projects, and Lucas' channel is awesome too. But I wanted to point out to your fashion show. I mean, I checked in long after some of the numbers, and I don't remember perfectly right now, but I think the fashion show, even on YouTube, the non-interactive recording of it had tenfold the user views to the other YouTube recorded fashion shows. And if we have lighthouse projects like that, other companies are going to follow. Not everyone, of course. They're going to be the same for we're doing this huge project with one industry client. Of course, there are 20 other industry clients that are hesitant. Same in the virtual conferences space. We've talked to so many big players which are playing it safe and probably won't turn a profit out of this because they're just doing the least they can basically around it, not taking any chances. But then there are others like a Maze Festival in Berlin or that really just do it and take the next step. And I think that in the end, those companies, even though it might be hard at some point, will benefit from this openness and yeah, innovation basically.
Absolutely. Did you guys have any, what was your events experience? Like I personally, for myself, like I really almost did not attend any VR events or digital events and panels. How was your experience with this digitization of events and platforms? And did you have a favorite event that you attended? And can't you, like for instance me, just not wait until we can go physically move and see each other?
Yeah, I mean, I can say something to that too. I actually went to quite a lot of events at the same time. It was extremely time-saving because, and that a lot of events feel like that. You're there, but you're not really there because you're working at the same time, or you're at 3 events at the same. Yesterday, I was, I think, at three events: Hannover Messe and GTC and another one. But you're not really there, and I think that's how a couple of the ones that I remember the best is. I mean, first time using Hopin actually left an impression on me because it was quite advanced when it first started with how it was set up. But something that stuck much more was when events tried to create that common space where you meet, rather than just having like this page and that page and for example, Virtual Laval was one of the first ones who had this actual virtual world. It was, I said this before, and I don't want to repeat it too often, but it was terrible on an accessibility standpoint and a technical standpoint to download it, get it running. You needed a high-performing computer and all that. But once you were in it, even the user experience wasn't that great. But just walking on the beach, meeting someone, and coming into a conversation with that person standing on the beach and looking out in the water, and that's something you remember because you associate, you really connect the space and the events that happen, and then it becomes a virtual event rather than a virtual video conference number 1,000. And I think that's a lot of the events were actually missing too much of that. And another example is a Maze Festival, for example, last year. They had this, and it doesn't necessarily have to be 3D, but I think it helps a lot because we just connected that way, that we remember navigating a space, and then it comes together as something I've been at rather than another call or another website that I clicked on.
I have to add a small anecdote. I hope my daughter will forgive me. My favorite festival was Venice VR on VR Island, and our 18-year-old daughter stole my headset at the final award party, and she drank all the virtual drinks, and then she crawled across the floor. And I think that's something that you could never do in any real event. So.
Oh, at the VR island?
I think when we can get wild, that is something that we all miss, and we will hopefully do that in real life again. And Lucas, I'm really look forward also to sometimes looking back on the events that you've seen through your glasses, when you went back in time. And I think just these kind of crazy little moments, that's what we all miss. And I mean, we have to recreate them in any other way. And I mean, also today's journey has been a wild one, and we'll remember it. And I think the interesting part is, how do we create these moments? And we're embarking on the journey now for the VR Now Awards. We'll see each other again. And I'm also really very much looking forward to that. Yeah.
But Kathrin, I think you raise a good point. Your daughter had to steal the headset from you, which means she doesn't have her own headset, right? I think one of the issues is the population of headsets is just not there. And I would like companies like HP to bundle, when they sell laptops to corporations, every laptop should come with a headset. Yeah? These headsets are now, the Quest 2 is below 500 euros, right? Way below 500 euros. And it's a massively great headset. And I don't know what the HP ones cost right now, but people like Dell, HP, hopefully Apple sometime too, they should bundle this stuff so that, and of course companies should be asking for that. So that it's a standard outfit of every sort of digital worker, digital user, to next to a flat screen on my laptop, I also have a headset that I can use.
But I mean, you hit the nail on something though. I mean, I'm gonna take the devil's advocate on that and go, my industry got destroyed. I have friends that haven't been able, they haven't earned a single pound since March. I can't ask them and say, now go in and spend the little bit of money that you have left on a VR headset. And so, it's very, it's very much the way it has to be. I think the consciousness of what we're doing right now, and hence why we rely so much on the whole concept of realities, is that right now, the majority of my audience, the majority of the people that are going to watch the content that I'm creating, they're going to see it on mobile, they're going to see it on their computers.
Yeah.
I would like to jump in on that because I also have quite a few friends who work in the physical event business, and there's almost some irony to what you just said, Tupac, because a lot, I don't generalize, but I can see people actually buying these VR headsets now, even though they don't have money, because they have the time to explore.
I can tell you. I mean, I would disagree a lot with that.
I really mean it in an irony, because a lot of self-employed people in Germany, for example, there have been programs to support self-employed people, but you can't you can't fund your salary with it. You can fund hardware buys with it. You know, it's really.
No, I completely agree. But if you think that if someone's trying to buy a machine and then you're trying to bundle on top of that 300, 500 quid extra, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's a different story. Yeah. That's Stephan.
So that's what I mean. Is it's
no. I want.
That's targeted to
this not be 500 euros more expensive. I want this to be co-funded either by the manufacturer or, you know, as Thomas said, there's so much public funding going on, at least Germany right now, to sort of try to compensate for economic losses. You know, why not say we fund the purchases of VR headsets in order for people to be able to purchase content that is created by the artists that are now, you know, not being able to perform. And so maybe we as an association or we as an industry, you know, should make a bigger push.
But then you get to the point of, you know, there was a moment when no one could get a Quest 2 because there wasn't enough like components in order to make the headsets, you know. So it's a bit of a catch-22 in all these elements, you know. This is what I mean is the reason why we moved into this idea of realities is because we need to, you know, we talk about ourselves as a studio. We work in places, spaces, and devices, and based on what is happening there, we decide the strategy of how we're going to create the content and where the content is going. You know, if all of a sudden there is if I know I'm going to put something in a VR festival, or that I know there's going to be a lot of headsets, then by all means I'm going to push that side of it. But understanding, I think someone made a study in the UK, and apparently there's only like 10% of the population in the UK has a headset. Mm-hmm. You know, some sort of headset.
Yeah. Maybe just one last thought. I come from 20 years of developing video on demand, which had a very rocky start as well. And the one thing that really got it through is it was possible to get the things on every device. Netflix was becoming by far the fastest platform because they were the ones to invest in getting on every device, in every mode, and in different means. And that takes a lot, but I think that's going to be key, is that we don't limit ourselves in saying this is the headset. We get an experience, and the more people can reach it in very different means, and from a smartphone to a headset, there's some experience. I think that might be a very important step. And we won't do that for everything, but I think it could be a.
But you just said it. Netflix went the right way, and if you think about some of the first series that you actually, you know, people watch Netflix. Most people used to watch Netflix in bed because they were watching on their phones or on an iPad. You know, the whole idea of watching it on your TV was almost like non-existent. People watched on their devices, and you know, this is why AR is going to be so massive, because everybody's got some sort of little phone that allows you to do something with it. You know, and then once you start bringing all the cloud XR and all the other elements that are coming through and being able to push more pixels, all of a sudden this thing is actually more important than a headset. You know. Alysha knows it. That's where she's doing AR.
Like with all of that, like it needs to be said that right now, like I always watch out for Steam, because like Steam is very, very important for us. And just in a year, the monthly users tripled. That's absolutely insane. Like right now, there are 3 million monthly users. It was like beginning of 2020, it was only 1 million. And it's obviously like a lot from the Quest 2, which is still illegal to buy in Germany, and is not allowed for very obvious reasons, obviously. And a lot also from the Index, which is very surprising to me, because Index is pretty expensive, but it's obviously coupled to Half-Life Alyx, again coupled to content.
Yeah,
so,
but selling devices always coupled to content, and that's why it might sound bad at first, but we need more Facebooks. We need more. Let me explain. I know exactly why Alysha is looking like she's looking, and that's exactly not how I meant it. We need more. We need more companies to invest in good content to be created, and that's one of the good things that Facebook does. With all the downsides of it, of how they close up their platform. But that's why we need more players like that, and not just Facebook pushing this forward. And because then, I'm actually pretty optimistic when it comes to VR headset sales, and I think it's still ramping up. We're much closer. I mean, some people expected crazy numbers, and I think probably most of us weren't on that side when in 2015 we were already a mainstream medium. You know, no one of us believed that. But we're actually getting closer and closer to that. The PlayStation 5 VR announced and all that. But where I'm much more hesitant is when it comes to the AR, like we envision good AR with HoloLens Plus extra working, because the prices for these kind of devices won't come down in quite a while. And so I think I'm just, there are very, very few cases that I can get excited about with a smartphone-based AR. I think it's always in the way. It's not really, it's very cumbersome, and it's not often doing a good job. And that's why AR is definitely huge. It's bigger. It has so many applications, but to become really that mainstream vision that we keep pushing there, it's going to be quite down the road. And everyone kept calling on Apple for the last 5 years, and I mean, this is not what they're going to publish first. Is not going to be that dream headset. It's more of, yeah, I think contextual AR will be pushed, where some sensor recognizes something in your environment and then gives you an added information that will be valuable, but not this visual kind of AR where it's completely integrated in the space, because the devices will just be too expensive for mainstream consumer to use that broadly. And if they can afford it, it will still be too heavy. So they're a completely different picture, by the way, in the industry. That's a completely different. I'm talking consumer right now. So I'm pretty hesitant when it comes to consumer AR devices, even with Unreal and stuff like that, being big in the next 3 years. I don't see that kind of a HoloLens base level of immersion in that kind of time frame for consumers at all.
No, but you also have to think about the learning curve of it, and that's where mobiles come in handy. You know, and that's where tablets come in handy, because you're able to teach an audience and people how to use it and how to understand it and understand the language. And you know, obviously, camera AR is now slowly taking over more and more and more and more and more. And you know, and the more that you start seeing it on your television and on your streams and on the things that you consume on a daily basis, it's going to start coming more. Then you look at what NVIDIA's doing, you look at what Intel's doing. You know, I think that phones are like that first frontier that is going to get us to the knowledge and the understanding of it, and how the creativity is going to start growing from there. And then the next step is to be, you know, not having to use your hands and be able to have some sort of device that you can use, and it's cheaper and it's doing all these things. But you know, right now we're in that learning curve of what AR is going to be and how we're going to do it.
I can see in Alysha's face that she wants to say something. No? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Then I'm also reminded that we have a Q&A that I can just like check at the same time. No, we don't have any questions right now from the audience. So while we were already discussing pretty heavy topics, I have yet another apocalyptic question for you guys. So we are also like with the pandemic and everything that's going on, like virtualization and digitalization is gaining a lot of speed. So then obviously the question is, what is the future of the human experience? And just a very apocalyptic question, like, is the metaverse soon to come, and is that good or not?
I mean, real reality will never be exchanged. You know, that one, you know, that one will never change. That's just the nature of it. I remember being in a panel and someone saying that they wanted to live online. You know, they wanted to be in a metaverse the entire time. And I told them, yeah, and then how are you going to eat? How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? It's like, well, you know, I'll just take off my headset. It's like, well, then there you go. Then you're going back to real reality, you know. I don't think that we're ever gonna, I hope not, for the sake of our humanity, that we're never gonna just be total recall and just put on our headsets and just live like Arnold Schwarzenegger. But you know, it's that's my hope.
That's awesome. Put that cookie down.
But I mean, you know, as someone that keeps working, you know, I most of my work, I always say it goes down to humanity, you know, and I try to find the humanity in technology and how those two things can merge constantly. You know, I always talk about technology as a character. I always think that that's the way through, and you know, nothing's going to change. And I'm telling you, as someone that my current human interactions, yeah, are 10 seconds when I walk into my studio and I get my temperature checked. That's all I talk to another human being that I see physically, yeah. And I can tell you how much I'm craving that. Like human contact, I have no idea what the hell that is. You know, I think when we come out of this, I'm gonna be like a 13-year-old going, oh, girls. Because I have no idea. What, you know, like yeah. But you know, I think that's the beauty of it. You know, and it goes back to what, you know, what I spoke with Laga a long time ago about this idea of we are the people that need to change this. You know, we as the creatives are the people that need to change this bit. All of us grew up with a very dystopian society in mind, in the way that we saw art, in the way that we saw movies, in the way that we read literature. All that was always this dystopian element. So why can we not change the discourse to make it a protopian, where technology is for good, where technology is actually helping us advance? I mean, for crying out loud, you know, how long does a vaccine take to make? And all of a sudden, by putting all those machines together and doing all these things, we're able to get something amazing in such a short period of time. So there is a way of doing it. And it's up to us to teach the new generations to believe in a better world.
That was beautiful, Tupac. Thank you for that. Does anybody want to add?
Well, these are very wise words by Tupac, and I think this is one of the ideas behind associations, right? So this is why it's important that we build these communities, and we also make sure that we connect the different communities that we have. You know, let's make sure that we don't have isolated communities working by themselves, trying to conquer the world, but let's make sure it's a big worldwide, international community of immersive enthusiasts, experts, lovers, whatever. And by the way, you know, video did not kill the radio star, and virtual reality will not kill reality.
Also, it's not going to kill books or films.
Yes, and in the end, all reality is created in here. That's why we did Me and My Brain and Mind the Brain, because that brings you inside your head, and ultimately all the reality is created inside of you, and you produce it as well. So that's what we do.
The last 12 months, I want to get out of there. The last 12 months, God.
But Kathrin, that is kind of an argument for not needing the reality if we just think about it being in the brain and not, there's no necessity for the embodiment. And that's a long topic to be discussed, I guess. But I wanted to add on what Tupac said, because I was going to say I really believe, but I'm not sure if I believe. But I think this way that Facebook and Google and all the big corporates have used our data and is not going to work for AR. I really think because we already see a tiny bit of that tendency, even though Alexa is more secure and better, it's safer, and it's more isolated than your cell phone and anything that runs on it. People are much more scared of it, and that's because it's much less abstract. The dangers of Google Mail and a cookie on a website are very, very abstract to human behavior and human being and living in the moment. But the closer it comes to your perceived reality, the more afraid you are instinctively by these things. So when you realize something like VR and AR can manipulate you, when you realize that it can cover up reality, it can change reality, it can listen to you, it can detect every movement you make, every intention you have, it can be detected. If you realize all of those things, and you're much more likely to realize it in a medium that is embodied than an abstract website, then you're much more hesitant to take that step into saying, well, who cares? You know, which is currently the whole principle that Facebook and Google operates on, because we just click OK on those terms of use because it's so abstract, we don't even get it. And I think that there is an essential difference here, and that's why I think it will be very hard for companies to try to push that same route, but you have to build up much more trust than they had to if you want to be successful in the AR and the contextualized AR area. But that's it. I'm not sure if it's a belief or a hope. So, yeah. But Alysha, I would like to hear your opinion on it because you were shaking your head.
Yeah, I'm feeling like a whole lot of threads sort of weaving back together, including Total Recall, which I actually watched for the first time in my life like 2 weeks ago. And my takeaway from Total Recall is Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, "Get your ass to Mars." And at the time, like I laughed really hard at that, but it does make me think about Mars, and specifically Elon Musk and this sort of movement that is to leave Earth and start over somewhere else. And when I think about where the future's going, like I was honestly hoping nobody was going to throw this to me because I am such a downer, and I don't know if it's just because I'm older than almost everybody else, but I feel really strongly that if humanity does not figure out really, really quickly that the planet is not ours to use, abuse, and leave, but rather that we are intrinsic parts of the planet and we cannot survive without it, that we as a species don't have any kind of future. And so beyond what Facebook's going to do, beyond what the new tech is, when I say that I am here to create experiences that connect people to people, places, or ideas, I mean that at the like most elementary and core level, which is the work that I'm doing. I am hoping to help people understand that they are as connected to their next door neighbor as they are to their family, as they are to the rocks that are out on the street and the food that they eat. And at the end of the day, the best day on Mars is the worst day in Antarctica from a weather standpoint. And Antarctica has water and Antarctica has air, and nobody lives in Antarctica full time. So these people who think that they can just leave the planet and start over again, it just infuriates me. And I honestly want to just shake all of them and say, fix this planet, you idiots. Like, stop running off to the next thing when in fact we have a real opportunity to stop the mess that we have made, to support the amazing ecosystem that has supported life for millions and billions of years before we got here and will continue to do so after we leave. There have been many mass extinction events. We will be far from the first species to go extinct. We will be the first one that knew it was doing it. We will be the first one that had a chance to stop it. We will be the first one that like willingly walked up to the cliff, looked over the other side and said, fuck it, and jumped. And like, that just really, really makes me sad. And so anytime we talk about the future, I just really think about how can we bring people back into the present? Somebody mentioned embodiment. Like, embodiment is so important. It's one of my biggest fears when we talk about virtual reality, is that people are going to lose the connection to their bodies. People are three-dimensional creatures, and I do not mean X, Y, and Z. I mean body, mind, and whether you want to call it spirit, heart, or soul, I don't care. But you neglect any of these and you are screwing everything. And right now, the tech industry focuses only on what happens in the mind because it's the thing that is the easiest to quantify and therefore the thing that is the easiest to sell. It's total bullshit and we have to do better. And I'm sorry I've gone on a rant, but that's what you get when you ask me.
No, that was not a rant. Like, I think we all, like, we were moved by your words and you're absolutely right. So thank you so much for your rant.
Yeah, I think we're just, the point you're making is basically we are a very short-lived species yet. I mean, if you look at this perspective, could be over any moment. And that's how most people are just hardwired. I think that's also the reality we have to face, that most people, when they're not absolutely consciously trying to recall something like that, they just think about tomorrow, the day after today. That's it. And that's why it's so hard to get these messages into people.
I think, like, to some extent, if the last year in the pandemic has highlighted anything, it's that every single one of us is trying to survive. Every single one of us is simply trying to survive. We're no different than the fish. We are no different than the scarab beetles. We are no different than any other living thing on this planet. We are trying to survive. And I think that one of the really big challenges with regard to humanity is we've set ourselves up in a capitalistic system that means that most of us are worried about our survival all the time. And I just think all the time, how different would it be if we didn't have to do this? There's enough food for everyone. There's enough housing for everyone. What if we just removed those things from being concerns and allowed people, instead of focusing on where they're going to get their next meal or where they're going to get a roof over their head, that they can actually start to think about, how can I take care of the planet that I live on? How can I do something nice for my neighbor? Because ultimately, if we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like, all of us are bottom, just like working our asses off for survival. And certainly, as a person who had all of my income streams disappear almost overnight last year, I can tell you that even when you feel pretty secure, and having had a 25+ year career in tech, I feel in many ways pretty secure. But last year was not a good year financially. Last year was really tough, and it was a real wake-up call. And I think that we're seeing this all over the world, even in the more enlightened countries like the Netherlands and Germany, where we think that there's a safety net for people to fall into. We all know people who've fallen through it. You know, I was 18 hours from being on the street with everything I owned last May because we had a landlord negotiating in bad faith. And, you know, these things, they happen. And simply put, like, I wish that we as a global species, I wish that we put even a fraction of the thought that we put into getting rich or into making money into actually caring for the planet. And I wish that we had set up a society that doesn't glorify money, because in general, the money comes from exploitation. And so, like, you know, if you've made a lot of money, that probably means you've screwed a lot of people, places, or things on the way to getting that. And I really wish that we measured value in a different way. I wish that we looked at a person's worth not by the number in the bank account, but by how much they care about the world, or about the people around them, about the things that really matter. I think that we're just, as a species, I think we are focused on absolutely the wrong thing. And I think that we made a wrong turn somewhere about 4,000 years ago, and it's out the map and say, whoa, we got to stop and get back on track.
I completely agree with you, and I still think I'm a big believer of you made it to a certain point, you won, fuck you. So if you make it $10 million, it's like, congratulations, you won on life, and now the rest of your income has to get divided by other people. You know, I completely agree with you. I think the glorification of what money is, but then again, look at the way that this is what I mean by the Protopian side of it. Look at the way that we teach our kids. Look at the games that we play, you know, Monopoly, you know, come on, you know, the glorification comes from the other side. You know, how often do you get, you know, I can basically stand outside and ask almost every single kid who Bill Gates is, and they're going to be able to tell me, you know. But if I turn around and I ask them who's Rigoberta Menchú, they're going to look at me and think that it's a, you know, something completely. So I think it's also the educational system. It's an entire transformation says that element that has to exist, you know, and that has to come in together. It's an entire polarization of what we need to do and how do we need to convert it. But if that gives you anything, think about, you know, I don't have any children, not that I know of. But, you know, I could see very easily, like at some point, one of the directors came to us and said, like, guys, are there any laptops in the studio that we can use? And I was like, well, why? Don't you have enough machines in your house? Like, no, it's just, I've just seen that my neighbor only has one like really old laptop and she's got 3 kids. And so all 3 of them can actually not go to school at the same time. I was like, yeah, there you go. So even if you think of that basic, what we call basic element, which is how are they connecting? How are they able to see and take classes? And that, you know, the disproportionate side of that is humongous, you know? And so it's one of those elements where you start thinking like, how can we make the changes that need to exist so that the education that we need to provide to all these people, and I mean this people, I don't mean only children. I think it goes from anyone that is 3 years old to anyone that is 90 years old. If you're living in this earth, you need to learn all this shit, you know. But how do you get the message out? How do you transform it? How do you change greed? When, you know, how do you teach an entire society that you should not be greedy when, you know, Cheeto make it to be a precedent by being greedy? You know, you look at Bolsonaro, you look at I just finished reading a massive book about populism, you know, and it's unbelievable how all the countries that I was reading about, the construction of how that leader comes to happen comes from all these inequalities that exist. And eventually the leader makes it leader, and the first 10 years tend to be amazing. And then they believe that they are the only people that can control it. And they end up actually leaving the country even worse than when they took it over, you know, because greed takes over. And greed takes over because what we see is that's the way that the world works. It's called Populista. It's amazing, by the way. It's actually an incredible book. But it's, you know, I think that the reconstruction that we need to create as a society, you know, has to come from the arts.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I also think if we do virtual reality, what is somehow in the middle is what kind of a picture do we have of a human being? And what we see, and we had the Facebook discussion also in the chat, where a lot of is about gathering data. And in many of the platforms, we see a very mechanistic model. There's a human being, and if you go on your smartphone with Facebook, you're basically conditioned in a way to react and to produce data, and you kind of get a data producing machine. If you look at what Elon Musk is with the Neuralink, they implant a monkey, and then the monkey can very mechanistically produce things. And on the other hand side, if you have a different model of a human on the center, a person that's creative and that can shape its environment and that can envision something and that can also change the world and change its environment, I think that is, and that's more a European model as well. That's more, I mean, the European tradition comes out of humanities, and I think one of the very good steps also when we look at where's VR going or where's XR going is to take a very good look of what idea of a human being do we have at the core, and how do we make that reality? How do we produce a reality for that? So put the human in the center of technology, as Tupac said. Yeah.
But it's I wouldn't pick right now continents, because I think Europe has the is on the same level as the US when it comes to distinction.
It's a dream that we can have. Maybe like that.
Basically, like, it's really about individuals and artists. Like it's really like what also Tupac said, that content is like content is consumed, and this is why re-education. It's always, I don't like the sound of this word, but it has to come also from artists and content.
Also, yeah, that's true. If you say we shouldn't put content in it, for example, I think we can learn very, very much from indigenous cultures in what kind of models of humanity do we have. And as an opposite, yes, absolutely.
Over there you can't see it, but the middle section, the long section says that, actually says indigenous. Mm-hmm. And it's all the indigenous learnings that we have. For me, I'm indigenous, you know. I come from a tribe, you know, and And the biggest learnings that I have are from them. The biggest understanding of what the world is and how a culture and a community should work, most of those things I've learned from them, you know. And so, but then again, think about the way that we talk about indigenous communities, you know. Usually, I mean, I'm Mexican, and one of the most despicable ways to call somebody is to call them Indio or Azteca, you know, which actually goes the other way, you know. If you're in Italy and you call somebody a Roman, they're like, yes, of course I'm a Roman, you know. Whereas you never think about it that way in the terms of an indigenous community, and that's where, you know, all of these kinds of things need to come from. And when I say about art, everyone says that I'm joking about this, but I'm almost positive that the way that the Bruckheimers used to write for CSI and for all their movies was to actually deep down inside give them give something to the audience to go, you're not going to get away with murder. If you try to murder people from CSI are going to come in and they're going to discover that you did it, you know. And so by inserting yourself in the arts, if you look at how governments work, if you look at the way that politicians use think tanks, you know, they are all think tanks that start putting specific words into writing, into journalism, into the newspapers, so that specific words start becoming buzzy, so that when the politician says it, all of a sudden it has an entire magnitude of elements that you can go back to, you know. So one of the biggest things that we need to, you know, the right has figured out that just by putting very good think tanks, they're able to start, you know, changing the way that we communicate and the way that the conversation goes. And so, you know, we need to start fighting fire with fire.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many topics coming together here, but I mean, with what Kathrin said and what you just said, on the one hand, you can look at what is the nature of human beings. Is it really like everyone just being without worries and then they're being creative and nice, or is part of the human nature being greedy? And I mean, and depending on what answer you would have to that, you might have to use different methods.
Human nature loves to kill, you know. Yeah, human nature is aggressive. But
my point is exactly. But my point is, you might need different methods to come to that utopia, depending on how you see look on human nature. And that's a tricky point, because if especially since you just talked about populism, you start kind of convincing people to be this way that you envision to be the good way, then you're also using manipulation. But it is kind of necessary, because you need to change an opinion in society to make a massive impact on such a level. So it is very tricky to call it either way, you know, with how we want society to be and what methods we should be using to achieve that goal.
And the problem is always that let's say the wrong side, the right side is always very, very loud. Like they're loud on any platforms, they're loud on demonstrations, and it's just basically that the other side that we're speaking about has to be as loud.
That's exactly, Julia, when you say the wrong and the right side, that's already kind of using the same messaging of portraying something which might still be an opinion into the proper way, and that's exactly the same methodology that.
But in many cases, the wrong side is very clear. It's not even debatable that the side is.
But for example, look at Japanese politicians. You know, the ones that are corrupted and kind of go on screen and go, "I'm sorry, I was corrupted," and they walk away. Like, can you imagine if that happened in any Western society? If we actually shamed completely our politicians for being corrupted and actually lying to the public?
Could we ever do that?
They tried. Nothing happens because there's no repercussions for the politicians. There's no repercussions for the elements, you know?
Absolutely.
Well, you know, you could not elect them. And if people still elect them, then what's wrong with the people?
Exactly. But then we go back to education. We go back to how do we teach people to,
I think
to
that's
understand. Yeah.
that's a key element is education.
Absolutely.
That's the root for so many things.
Absolutely, like the solution for accountability, and education. Like it's just like right now, recent news, like to go through the news feed, it's just horrifying what is happening. Like mistaking a taser, like a gun for a taser. And we hear the stories every day 30, 40, 50 times, and it's just basically like I think all of us have exactly the same idea that when you create content that people consume, that you want to just teeny tiny bit change the world, and teeny tiny bit help with your content. And I think that's a sickness of every creator, but it's not only a sickness, like it can be used for the good. And education, basically. Like I loved Tupac's example with Bruckenheimer. Just you're absolutely right. Like CSI, like this is so simple. Like you commit murder, you're going to be caught. Con Air, you're a con and you want to do something bad on an airplane. There is Nick Cage.
Listen, I think we should have Sir Nick Cage in every single place, and that would be the one that looks after all of us. Exactly. Yes, indeed. Nick Cage should be in everyone's house.
Oh my.
All right, guys. This was a fantastic discussion. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to all of you, seeing all of you, and discussing this several topics. Not only VR topics, but why should we? VR is not only is not the only thing on the mind of a VR creator. So thank you so much. And Top Gun. Oh, Top Gun, Alysha. Yep, Top Gun is next. So is there any, I'm just going to check before we stop. Are there any questions? Nope, there are no QAs. Just at the very end, the words you can submit.
One thing, maybe we should at least the few people that are still here remind to spread the word about submitting these cool kind of content to the VR Now Awards and sharing the words, because we can only, as a jury, as always, pick from the submission we get, and we want to pick something nice. So spread the word.
Yeah, exactly. Give us good content. You know, when you have to be a jury member, you have to go through a lot of stuff. And, you know, when the content's not good, it's painful. Because at the end of the day, you have to see it all. You know, even if it's painful, you end up watching every single thing. Makes it lovely when there's actually good content.
And there's always good content out there. Because Thomas, I was just about to say that.
Sorry. Didn't want to interrupt. I thought you're gonna hang up now. And,
it's like Ioulia out.
Yeah. So the submissions are open, and they're open until the 5th of May. And we have many categories. We have the industry application categories for everybody who's doing applications and simulations, training, working for clients. Then we have obviously immersive cinema, entertainment, and technology. And we're gonna have our 2 slightly different awards, which are the Grand Jury Award and the Grand Prize of the whole Biennale. And we're gonna have the Holy Shit Award. Holy Shit Award is we actually, like, it wasn't Melissa's last question to talk about the Holy Shit Award, but the Holy Shit judge disappeared. So of course he did. That was part of the plan. So basically, the Holy Shit Award is, how can I explain it? It's just you watch something, and then the first reaction is when you take the headset off, holy shit.
That's it.
That's the definition. And everybody can submit. You can think of the jury, everybody can nominate. And yeah, so the submissions are until the 5th, and our show is going to be on don't correct me if I'm wrong, on the 22nd of June. Stephan disappeared. 22nd of June. Yes.
Yes.
Peter, thank you, Peter. On the 22nd of June, and please submit, and our judges gonna fish out fantastic comment, and basically, like, we love content, and we all love to watch content, and we all love to give awards to incredibly mind-blowing.
I hate to, I don't want to have the last word at all, so someone else speak after me. But maybe it would be, since we talked so much about wealth and commercials and stuff like that, maybe there should be a pool of, I don't know, 20 codes, 30 codes that we can give out to people that can't afford to submit. Maybe, I don't know if that's already in place or not, but maybe we should do something like that.
We're doing that already, by the way.
Okay.
So if anybody who's watching right now, if anybody who's watching is going to tell about the submissions to their friends, if they know creators, just write to us. And if you're an indie studio if you don't have means, like right now the submissions cost €50, please write to us and we can waive the fee.
Yeah.
Obviously, if Facebook is watching, we're not going to waive your fee, but so yeah, write to thank you, Stephan. Peter at virtualrealitybb.org, and we would love to support creators. And yeah, thank you, Thomas, for pointing it out. Thank you so much.
Now back to the Winkebaer.
There, and maybe, yeah, now you see Berlin. It's not so, you see a little bit
There we
bigger.
go. Yeah, real.
Now you can see it.
There it is. There's.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So please submit until the 5th of May. Please tell your friends, content, and creator friends, and we can't wait for the submissions. Thank you all. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now I think we press leave.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see the leave button here.
Awkward silence.
Bye.